Turn 1 Soul Ring.
It's funny that you mentioned Keyforge because it just makes me think of like you're buying this pre-made deck, and then Magic was like, "Hey, Jumpstart, just put 2 booster packs together. You got a deck, play."
Yeah, come on, you dummy.
Richard Garfield's just like, no. It's like there was time
Just-
now.
Just rolling in his grave.
Well, he would be
If he was dead?
exactly. Yeah.
He's rolling in his millions of dollars.
Yeah, he's like, no.
No.
Oh no!
I'm so rich.
Uh-oh.
What? Whoa!
Ruh-roh. All right, everybody. Hello
boy.
and welcome to another episode of Turn 1 Soul Ring. I'm Kevin.
Hey, I'm Eric.
Oh, yeah, I know I'm Riley.
And today on the show, we are going to be wrapping up our Zendikar Rising set review. Last week, we covered the white, blue, and black cards that we were interested in talking about. And today, we're going to be covering the red, green, gold, colorless, and land cards that have caught our interest. But before we get to that, Eric, how can listeners get in touch with us?
Lands are colorless.
Exactly, but I like to add it because I don't know if people are going to get mad, and it's just a whole thing.
People can find us on Instagram at Turn 1 Soul Ring the podcast. You can also get a hold of us directly. Send us a little message with an email at turn1soulringthepodcast@gmail.com. And then also going over onto YouTube, you can find us. Just type in Turn 1 Soul Ring the podcast to find us the easiest. Check out our stuff over there.
Okay, so we're not going to waste any time today. We're just going to get right into it because this might be a little bit of a longer episode, but you probably already knew that because it's already been recorded whenever you're listening to this. So we're going to start with red. Our first red card is a Coom Hellhound. It's 1 red mana for a 0/1 elemental dog. It has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, a Coom Hellhound gets +2/+2 until end of turn. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I was distracted by his art at the beginning. That's why so I missed my cue. I was like staring at these little meteors and this beautiful little boy.
You're just entranced by it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Riley's like fire.
Ooh.
Yeah, this is basically a red shifted Step Links from original Zendikar. I mean, of course, original Zendikar draft was very landfall heavy and very aggressive. So there's like really strong red-white decks following the landfall theme. There's not as much landfall support at common in this set. So I can't imagine, like, even though a Coom Hellhound is quite strong in a vacuum, I don't think there's going to be a very strong aggressive landfall deck in the format.
Yeah, like I think you can just see this kind of as like in the early stages of the game, is like a 2/3 for 1 mana.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
For
Because
sure.
you're going to be always dropping a land, right? So
Yeah, and that's the strength of it for sure.
yeah.
What about in Pauper?
But
Do you think this is gonna see play anywhere in that format?
Well, I mean, Step Links is already common, and it's been in like Pauper legal for however many years since the original Zendikar. But I can't remember. Has there been like a zoo deck in Pauper? I can't think of a zoo deck.
No, I can't either. No.
With like Kurt Ape or anything like that running around in Pauper. So I can't imagine, but there might be something. Like, it is color shifted to red, so that opens you up to some really solid removal as well. And obviously it's an aggressive color, so maybe.
Okay, next up we have Cinderclasm. It's 1 in a red for an instant. Cinderclasm deals 1 damage to each creature. It has kicker for 1 red. If it was kicked, it deals 2 damage to each creature instead. That's like a Pyroclasm from I don't know what that set was. Maybe Scourge. Anyways, I'm going off on a tangent here, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, I like this card is probably going to see play in standard just for the fact that it's 3 mana, deal 2 to each creature when it's kicked, of course. But I particularly like this because it's a cheap kicker spell for Halar the Firefletcher.
Yeah, you got to kick it.
So my Halar deck, I'm probably going to find a home for this because even though it's not the most powerful effect in Commander, it's a cheap kicker spell, which is sometimes more important.
And in the early game, in more competitive matchups in Commander, this is a really good card because Pyroclasm in Commander does see competitive play.
And then this can even like hose people's dorks and stuff as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I do also like this for even like seeing in draft and stuff. Like I can see some situations where, you know, if I do 1 damage, I'm killing more of my enemy's creatures than my own. But if I do 2, I'm killing too much of my own. So you only want to cast it for like the 2 mana without the kicker. So it's kind of really cool as like a modal spell like that as well. Like with your best situation, you can choose to deal 1 or 2 to everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Cleansing Wildfire. It's 1 and a red for sorcery. Destroy target land. Its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle their library. Draw a card. Whew, we got a Tron killer right here.
Oh boy.
Have you guys seen that that mashup on YouTube of like content creators saying Tron killer from like past set releases and cards coming out and saying, you know, like Assassin's Trophy, it's Tron Killer, and it's if you haven't seen it, it's pretty funny. I think you can just type in Tron Killer into the YouTube search bar.
Yeah, I definitely remember watching when Assassin's Trophy came out because so many people had talked about other things before, and this was like the new Tron Killer, and it still didn't, you know.
No,
like,
You know, I was actually reading an article today by Alex Ullman, who's like a pretty respected Pauper player from Channel Fireball. And he was talking about this card in Pauper and how it's going to possibly shake up the format, but not necessarily for Tron, rather for Boros Monarch, because hitting a Boros Garrison is going to be devastating.
Oh, yeah.
Rather than Tron, because Flickertron has Ghostly Flicker, and one of the modes of Ghostly Flicker is you can flick a land.
Mm-hmm.
So if Tron is just sitting there waiting for you to respond and you go to cast Cleansing Wildfire, they can just, you know, target their mnemonic wall, target their Tron piece that you're attacking, and fizzle your card draw and put the land back into play, bring Ghostly Flicker back to their hand with Mnemonic Wall's triggered ability, and rinse and repeat.
It sounds very resilient.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the power of Flickertron, is it's incredibly resilient.
But yeah, obviously this card replacing itself makes it just like ever so good.
Oh yeah, of course. Like yeah, that's just the cherry on top, I think.
I'm wondering if in like some, you know, when things open up again, if Tron becomes too popular in some modern formats, like if this will see some sideboard play or not. It definitely fits into Burn, fits into Jund. So, and replacing itself is obviously like, that's just an easy slot, right?
Yeah, and a lot of you know, I in my Tron deck I run 5 basic forests, but you know there are various Tron builds that run. You know, I've seen some builds that run a Overgrown Tomb or 2, so that they don't always have to pay the life for Dismember. Or I've seen now with the, I mean, before it was Horizon Canopy, but with the other Modern Horizons, Horizon Lands. I've seen those worked in there as well, so for the card draw effect. So, you know, you're not always, you know, there are going to be situations where you're going to have Tron matchups that, you know, are running 2 or 3 basic lands and they aren't able to search. So it is effectively like a 2 mana Stone Rain that draws you a card.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Grotag Night Runner. It's 2 and a red for a 2/3 Goblin Rogue. Whenever Grotag Night Runner deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. This card is so good.
Yeah. Nice little engine on a body.
Throwing a little bit of rogues in with red as well. I wish it had haste.
That would be flavorful.
I mean, I wish everything had haste.
Yeah. Well, at least everything red. Don't get carried away, Riley. Come on. But yeah, the fact that you can hit lands with it and play them is, you know, just just makes it that much better.
Super, super good. You just got to find a way to get the damage through.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
In an aggressive deck with a slew of removal spells, this could be your top end, and just keep pumping the gas.
Yeah, hopefully you're like red black, because I mean, like, again, if you go against some green deck, they're like, haha, I got a 4/4 on turn 4. What you gonna do about it?
just gonna cry.
Next up, we have Karagan Intimidator. For 1 and a red, it's a 3/1 human warrior. Cowards can't block warriors. You can pay 1. Choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Karagan Intimidator gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Target creature becomes a coward until end of turn. And target warrior gains trample until end of turn.
This is such a cool card.
Doesn't he look like Dave Grohl?
Yeah,
a Foo Fighters fame. Yeah.
That's all I can think about when I look at this card.
I never even thought of that, but yeah, totally seeing his face. Yeah,
I don't think anybody's gonna get the best of Karagan Intimidator, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. He ain't no foo.
Yes.
Oh yeah. This is a great card though. This is just like for a 2-drop, a 2-mana 3/1. Like this guy
just good
packs a
already.
punch.
Yeah. I love how they like brought in like they could have just had it as like target creature can't block this turn or something, but they brought in cowards, which can't block warriors and stuff. I think it's just fun.
Yeah, and they just made it really flavorful.
And interestingly enough, like the coward is a replacement effect. So if you target, a key party member on the opponent's side of the battlefield, you can get rid of a member of their party for the turn.
Or if they have a changeling or multiple changelings, they're also cowards. So think about that.
You dumb coward.
Yeah, there's actually like you can even like turn some things off if someone has some sort of like strategy going on. Like how you said with party, but even if you're playing commander or something like that, like there are things that you can turn off with that. That's actually kind of cool.
Oh yeah, yeah. Changing the creature type it can be effective. Yeah. Next up, we have a Leyline Tyrant. It's 2 and 2 red for a 4/4 dragon with flying. You don't lose unspent red mana as steps and phases end. When Leyline Tyrant dies, you may pay any amount of red mana. When you do, it deals that much damage to any target. This is just an amazing effect in red to have. It's like you're not losing mana. You can save up your mana. You get a 4/4 flyer, and if somebody wants to remove this from the board, you can just hit whatever they have, even their face. I just love this card.
It's so good.
Even their face.
Even their face. Like a 4/4 flyer for 4 is like such a good rate already, right?
Yeah, they could have stopped there.
Yeah.
Yeah, just 4/4 flyer for 4 at Mythic. Stop there.
Yeah, so at Mythic, stop
full
there.
stop. Yeah, I'm building a new commander deck around this card. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on it. What's that artifact that like doubles the mana in your mana pool?
Oh, Doubling Cube.
Doubling Cube?
Yeah. So combine this with Doubling Cube. Hello.
Cha-ching.
Or even just like combine this with Neheb the Eternal. Like just smash your opponent in the face and hold on to that mana for longer than just till the end of your turn.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, and I just love it would have been great as a 4/4 flyer with the first clause, but the fact that it has that insurance that is going to make your opponents think twice about removing it. I just love that. It's just, I don't want to say it's the perfect card, but it's pretty good.
I'm definitely picking this up for my Boros Sunspeaker deck.
Oh yeah,
nice.
Of course.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And it's just really funny because, like, again, how you were just saying with the like insurance, if you have a way of getting that mana right away, now it's like, oh, if you're the person to remove it, you're gonna die because he's just gonna obviously hit you with it.
Yeah. Or or some kind of
no one's gonna want to touch it.
Some kind of board wipe where it wipes out all creatures, and then the player that cast it has a planeswalker. Just hit that, and then it's not such a good board wipe for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, it has to die. So if they have exile or
Yeah.
bounce, you're gonna have a bad time. But hopefully, you have other ways to use that mana.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And that's
the one thing.
and that's a really good point, Riley. And that's why it's always good to have a sack outlet. So if somebody tries to mess with your die trigger, you just say, "Nope, I'm going to sacrifice in response."
Yeah, you loser.
Nice.
Ha.
Got him.
Next up, we have Magmatic Channeler. It's 1 and a red for a 1/3 human wizard. As long as there are 4 or more instant and or sorcery cards in your graveyard, Magmatic Channeler gets +3/+1. You can tap it to discard a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library, then choose one of them. You may play that card this turn. Red always coming through with letting you play extra lands. Not extra lands, but, the impulsive card draw, letting you play lands off of it is what I mean.
I think this card is like pretty insane. I actually think this is
great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's definitely really good. Obviously, like, it's going to see standard play, I think. And I'm wondering if even some eternal formats, because you're like, well, it's 2 mana for a 4/4. Like, hello.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, discard a card, like, look at the top 2 cards of your library and pick one. It's almost like discard a card, draw 2 cards.
Yeah.
Just, like, to have that kind of advantage is incredible for just a tap ability.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'd love to maybe slap together a Riel the Everwise deck in Standard and have Magmatic Channeler paired with that. Because, of course, you have to tap and discard a card, but then you get to draw that card right back.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
these are my pipe dreams. It's probably not going to come to fruition, but a man can dream.
And everybody, if you've listened to our Decksplained episode on Riley's Riel the Everwise deck, that deck is the real deal. Okay, like it wins games. I'll tell you that right now. Like 4, and I'm talking 4-player Commander Pod games. It wins.
It's deadly.
Yes, so watch out.
Yeah, it hits like a truck.
Oh yeah. Oh man, Riel
Going down a mountain.
Like she looks really old, but she's built like a tool shed. Next up, we have Morog, Fury of a Coom. It's 4 and 2 red for a 6/6 legendary Minotaur warrior. Each creature you control gets +1/+0 for each time it has attacked this turn, and it has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if it's your main phase, there's an additional combat phase after this phase. At the beginning of that combat, untap all creatures you control. This is just with the right setup, you just have infinite attacks.
Totally. And I think even just like putting this, like if you're running red and just having this in your deck, like you can get incidental double attack turns, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Seems pretty dang good.
There is a bit of a PSA I've got to share, though. Make sure you play or put your lands into play on your second main phase.
Yes.
Because if you put them in on your first main phase, you're going to get that untap trigger and that additional combat before your proper combat, right?
And so they're not going to untap.
So they're not going to untap. So make sure you play your lands on your second main phase. And then also note that the lands have to come into play during one of your main phases to get this ability trigger. And it doesn't create an additional main phase after the extra combat, which is something that you don't see too often. Usually when you have an effect like this,
interesting,
you get an additional main phase following the combat. But instead, once you have your additional combat step, it's just going to go straight to your end step.
Okay, so you can't really go nuts with this.
No, you can't.
Like some people have talked about interactions with Sword of the Animist, but Sword of the Animist triggers during your combat step.
Right.
So when the land enters the battlefield, it's not going to actually trigger Morag's landfall ability.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can't chain them together like that. So there's a few stopgaps they've put in here just so you can't totally abuse it. It's really powerful, but not totally busted.
Right. Interesting. And, another PSA, in most cases, unless you need that mana on your first main phase, you really should wait until your second main phase to play your land for the turn. Okay, let's move on to Nihiris Lithoforming. It's X and 2 red for a sorcery. Sacrifice X lands. For each land, sacrifice this away. Draw a card. You may play X additional lands this turn. Lands you control enter the battlefield tapped this turn. So, just a note here, if you do have shock lands and you want to play them off of Nihiris Lithoforming, you can pay the life, but they will still enter the battlefield tapped.
Correct.
I mean, it's your funeral.
Hey, I got 40 life. I'm not worried.
This card is on its face not that great, but there have been some lists popping up on Twitter that I've seen with a lot of these modal double face card land like Lotus Cobra combos with the I can't remember the card name, but it was a Green Warden, one of the new cards that was printed. It's 4 and 2 green, and you can play lands out of your graveyard. Either way, it's there's combo potential in Standard and likely in Commander and other Eternal formats with this kind of card. I think Scapeshift is generally going to be a stronger card.
Yeah, because you instead of drawing cards, you get lands. Specifically, it's like land for land.
Yeah, and in this case, like, of course, the sacrifice is not a cost, so it happens as the spell's resolving.
Thank goodness.
Which is a plus.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to sacrifice all your lands.
Counterspell.
But yeah, like, you are trading like 1 for 1, like lands that you've played on the battlefield for cards that you're drawing, and then everything that you play after that is coming into the battlefield, onto the battlefield tapped. But of course, you can get some. Oh, I know what the card does. So you can play lands from your graveyard, and it also has basically like a Panharmonicon for lands entering the battlefield. So it doubles up the triggers of lands entering the battlefield.
Oh yeah, it's that Celestia card, right?
It's green. It's like a big dummy. It's 4 and 2 green.
Okay. Yeah, we haven't gotten a green yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But basically with Lotus Cobra on the battlefield and that on the battlefield, as you're like sacrificing and playing out your tapped lands, you're generating more mana, so you can like pump mana into Rada and just make Rada super big and punch people in the face, or Flinger with one of the fling double faced modal land spells. Yeah, good time. Looks fun.
Sweet.
Next up, we have Relic Robber. It's 2 and a red for a 2/2 Goblin Rogue with haste. Whenever Relic Robber deals combat damage to a player, that player creates a 0/1 colorless Goblin Construct artifact creature token with this creature can't block, and at the beginning of your upkeep, this creature deals 1 damage to you. I like it.
This is a really cool card as well. And hey, our Goblin Rogue has haste.
Thank goodness. Come on.
So you can like set up a board state where you know you're going to at least get 1 attack in. That's what I really like about that, obviously. But also the art on this card is just great.
Yeah, and it's perfect for the flavor text. Here, you take it.
Yeah. Oh,
it's
man.
like hot potato.
Yeah. Hot relic. Wait, what?
It's got to be hot. We know that.
Anyways.
Next up, we have Roiling Vortex. It's 1 and a red for an enchantment. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, Roiling Vortex deals 1 damage to them. Whenever a player casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast that spell, Roiling Vortex deals 5 damage to that player, and you can pay a red. Your opponents can't gain life this turn. This is a very cool card. I
like it a lot.
Pretty spicy.
Yeah, it's really nice because obviously if you're playing some sort of like burn or aggro strategy in Commander, if there is that one person that has like some sort of life gain going on, you can just always make sure to keep like a red or 2 up and be able to turn that off so that you know that you can always have your opponents not have that ability. Obviously be better like with other cards where just like your opponents can't gain life this turn. But
yeah, like Sulfuric Vortex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is just another one of those kind of cards, though. So
yeah, exactly. This is just a redundancy, and I think, I love the activated ability, and I love the whenever a player casts a spell, if no mana was to cast it, but just that upkeep trigger that just like chips away damage, and going back to Neheb, that's just going to give you that much more red mana. I actually hadn't thought too much about this card, but I might want to try slotting it into Zansha because that deck's all about just like slowly draining everybody out of life, including myself.
Yeah.
So,
And then if people are trying to do like free spell shenanigans, they really get hurt for it.
well, they should.
And Torbrand's still in standard.
Oh,
Yeah.
So deal 3 damage to your opponent on their upkeep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds fun.
Pretty good.
Next up, we have Shatterskull Minotaur. Oh, I guess I didn't update the JPEG on this one. It's 4 and 2 red for a 5/4 Minotaur warrior. I can still read it. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. And in case you don't remember from last episode, your party consists of up to 1 of each of Cleric, Rogue, Warrior, and Wizard, and it has haste. So, boom, another red card with haste.
Yeah, get him.
Yeah, this
That's
is just,
all. That's all I have.
yeah,
Yeah,
seems a little expensive for like even if you have like the whole party. Like,
Yeah, I think
I think it's gonna be just fine and limited.
I think a lot of times in limited,
fine
like
in limited.
you're gonna be casting this for like 4
5
mana.
mana.
5 or 4 mana is probably gonna be the average.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a 5/4 haste for 5 is just fine and limited.
Yeah,
and in some in weaker packs, you might first pick this. Honestly,
yeah, I mean, if there's a scenario, I mean, there's a modal double face card in every pack, right? So
okay.
unless that double face card is atrocious, then maybe there could be a world.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize that because that's how they did it. That's how they've done the double face cards in the Innistrad blocks as well. I didn't realize they were doing the same thing in this set.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
All right. Well, now that I've saved faced, we can move on to the next card. Oh, you know what? I did update it, but I didn't delete the old version. So I went to the next one. It's this crisp Minotaur warrior, but now we can move on.
Crisp Minotaur boy.
Yeah, that's what they should have called it. Next up, we have our first flip card of this episode. It's Shatterskull Smashing. It's X red for a sorcery. Shatterskull Smashing deals X damage divided as you choose among up to 2 target creatures and or planeswalkers. If X is 6 or more, it deals twice X damage divided as you choose among them instead. And the flip side is Shatterskull, the Hammer Pass. It's a land, and it enters the battlefield tapped unless you pay 3 life, and you can add a red to your mana pool.
This card's great for limited.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's such like low opportunity cost as well for playing it in constructed as well. I could probably see it slotting into some sort of like Rakdos or Burn style deck.
Yeah, I guess so. It's like can still be like a late removal spell. That's fair.
Yep. And I mean, at the end of the day, you're most likely in a deck like that, in an aggressive deck, you're most likely going to be playing it untapped as a bolt land, right?
Yeah, and in an aggressive deck, you're putting pressure on, so you're not that concerned with losing 3 life because you're like the strategy of that deck.
Your opponent's going to die first.
Yeah, they're much more worried about their life total than you are worried about yours.
Yeah, but just that opportunity to be able to play more lands in your aggro deck and not be worried about flooding out because those lands have extra utility. I think that is the most powerful thing about these cards.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Next up, we have another flip card, Velikut Awakening. It's 2 and a red for an instant. Put any number of cards from your hand on the bottom of your library, then draw that many cards +1. And the flip side is Velikut Stoneforge. It enters the battlefield tapped, and it taps for a red. Oh, and of course, it's a land.
This is just super good, especially because like the front face is instant as well.
I know, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like,
So
yeah, I'll dump my hand and draw that many cards +1, whatever.
yeah, like you're going
it
through
is
so much of
selective.
your deck.
I know, it's incredible.
And even if you're looking at like comparing it to like sometimes in blue, we can like draw a card for 2 mana. So for 1 extra mana, if we have more cards, like we are only like, it's only 1 more card and card advantage, but it's getting us maybe 4 or 5 cards deep or into our deck.
Yeah,
So.
and a lot of those blue there's a lot of blue card spells that are sorcery speed. Like the fact that this is instant speed really just makes it incredibly playable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, next up, we have Velikut Exploration. It's 2 and a red for an enchantment. It has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. At the beginning of your end step, if there are cards exiled with Velikut Exploration, put them into their owner's graveyard. Then Velikut Exploration deals that much damage to each opponent.
So, this is a really cool effect. It instantly reminded me of Chandra, Torture Defiance, with her +2, or +1, sorry. You could,
right.
play the card or deal 2 damage to your opponent.
Right.
This is kind of the same thing. Card's exiled. If you don't end up playing it, it does deal that much damage to your opponent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess it's only 1 damage though per card, right?
Yeah, but if you're like, if you're doing Nihiris Lithoforming or like scape shifting in Commander, like whatever you put under it, it's gonna go to your opponent's face.
Yeah, and if you don't play the card, it remains exiled, and then that damage does stack up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at the end of turn, all those cards will go into your graveyard, and then it'll deal that much damage to your opponents based on the number of cards going to your graveyard.
Right. And it's also great because it's each opponent.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
Man, if my Torbrand deck was still alive, this would be like a slam dunk in that Torbrand Commander deck. Like this is perfect.
Brett?
Like I think one of the weaknesses of that deck was if you happen to draw the wrong half and start to flood out, like there was you fizzled really quickly because it was fairly aggressive. It kind of dumps your hand pretty quickly. So this is like the perfect addition to a deck like that.
Riley, did you turn your Torbrand deck into your Norn the Wary deck?
I did, yeah.
Nice. Nice. Very nice. I recently, how I had that like Gideon Wrath of God Oathbreaker deck, which we did an episode on. I sort of made a few additions, a lot of additions, and made a few swaps, and I built like a White Weedy Canlander deck. So we got to get together and play some Canlander.
Right arm.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Next up, we have Wayward Guide Beast. It's 1 red for a 2/2 with trample and haste, and it's a beast. Whenever Wayward Guide Beast deals combat damage to a player, return a land you control to its owner's hand. And then you get to play it again for landfall, baby. Oh, yeah.
I think this card seems to be pretty good. I think it might get like underestimated because you are returning a land to your hand, which really sucks, obviously. But I still think in certain situations, like if you have, say we are playing Burn, it's turn 2, and it's turn 3, it didn't end up drawing another land. You can actually like cast a spell, attack with this. If you get the damage through, return your tapped land, play your untapped land, play another burn spell. So you kind of get more mana out of the lands that you have.
Oh, yeah, and like I can tell you from games I've played with my Yisan deck with Quirion Ranger, which lets you bounce a force to your hand to untap a creature, and then you can, if you haven't played a land that turn, you can replay that forest. Like that kind of thing can be very powerful if you are working on a very tight low curve to get done what you want to get done.
Heck yeah.
I think that's basically exactly where it would fit.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise it is risky depending on how you play the card, but I think it is more it's not so much a turn 1 play as maybe like a turn 3 play when you don't have a land to play and you need to put extra pressure on your opponent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or get a landfall trigger that turn if you don't have a land to play.
Yeah.
Next up, we're moving on to green here, everybody. So our first green card is
Greener Pastures.
It's always greener. Do we have any more green euphemisms or words of wisdom? Anybody? No? Okay,
No.
we're gonna move on to green then. Adventure awaits.
I'm sorry.
The perfect card to start. No, don't apologize. It's 1 and a green for a sorcery. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If you didn't put a card into your hand this way, draw a card. That's nice. You know, it's like giving a little nod to, hey, maybe you don't want to put a card into your hand. Maybe you don't want to reveal a creature card, or maybe you just whiffed.
Maybe you just really like drawing and you don't like anticipate.
Oh, well, I hate anticipation. You know, like the song, like it's making me wait. Oh, I hate it. I can't even.
I don't think this card is particularly powerful by any stretch of the means. Like in limited, this is filler at best. But I really like the design of if you didn't put something into your hand, draw a card. So you're not going to whiff, and you're not going to get those feel bads of whiffing.
Yeah, that's my favorite part for sure.
Yeah, so that's the reason I put it on the list. I kind of just like that new design.
Yeah.
Yeah, baby.
I think it's these cards are also pretty like decent, because you can run into situations where it's like, oh crap, I would like to get a creature out there and I don't have anything left. Then you got this guy to back you up.
I think in situations in like limited in particular where you're going to see quite a few of these, because I don't think they're going to be picked very highly, but I think in a build where you're trying to assemble a party and really focus on that party mechanic, like this is a way to try to assemble that combo as best you can.
Yeah.
At common, but otherwise it's almost like a bad tutor, which is, I mean, tutors are notoriously not great in limited, just given that you're spending that mana and getting a card, but the best card is still not generally anything special.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
It's I wonder. This makes me think of Once Upon a Time. I wonder if this had the added clause, if this was your first spell that you've cast this game, you could cast it for free. I wonder if it would get banned in multiple formats. I guess Once Upon a Time had the added clause of you could reveal a land as well.
Yep.
But anyways, I got a playset in my binder if anyone wants them. So next up we have Ancient Green Warden. It's 4 and 2 green for a 5/7 elemental with reach. You may play lands from your graveyard. If a land entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. This was the card you were talking about, Eric.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, it's pretty damn good. This card's like getting on that broken side of things.
Harmonicon.
It is. Yeah, it's getting a little bit much, but this is going to be great in those Angry Omnath decks that everybody's going to be building.
Angry Omnath is back.
Yeah, all the Omnaths are back. Every time they print a new Omnath, everyone goes back and like looks at the lore of Omnath and is like, okay, I want to have an Omnath collection of decks. So they start with Locus of Mana, then Locus of Rage, and then the other ones. And you know, the next one we're gonna get is gonna be 5 colors. It's gonna be nuts. And then we'll get a colorless one. Mark my words, everybody. Mark them.
Spirit of Omnath, just colorless.
There you go. Now you're talking. And he's gonna have wings this time.
But you'll be able to. His ability would be like you can spend mana as though it were mana of any color,
and it doesn't empty from your mana pool.
Yeah. And he draws you cards.
And you know, make him a god, so he's really hard to get off the board.
And it better be legendary, so it can be your commander.
Oh, he's got to be legendary, yeah. But anyways, let's talk about Ancient Green Warden. We're getting carried away here.
Well, I think that's all we have to talk about. You can play lands from your graveyard, and you can double trigger lands entering the battlefield. So
it's just a
double
damn
trigger
good
all
green
your just double all your landfall triggers. If your lands have abilities on them, double trigger those. Good stuff.
All right, next up we have Ashaya, Soul of the Wild. It's 3 and 2 green for a legendary elemental, star. Ashaya's Soul of the Wild's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. Non-token creatures you control are forest lands in addition to their other types.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't want to be on the. I wouldn't want to have this on the battlefield when someone casts an Armageddon. I tell you that.
Well, she dies to Blood Moon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really weird interaction. I don't even I can't even pretend to begin to understand the layers that go on with how the state-based actions are checked and in which order, and why she's the only one who dies and not everything else.
I was gonna say, why does she die to Blood Moon?
Because she loses all abilities, and one of her abilities is that her power and toughness is equal to the number of lands you control.
All right.
Blood
So
Moon
she's-
doesn't make
she's
creatures.
But she's a non-token creature you control, so she's a forest land,
Oh,
and she becomes
right.
So
a
she-
mountain.
She turns herself into a forest. Yeah, she becomes a basic
mountain.
with no abilities.
Yeah.
And then dies.
Right.
But your other creatures will survive because they generally will have their own power and toughness, right?
Right.
Yep.
So then she'll die and they'll turn back into creatures just like normal.
Oh, that's
yeah.
wild.
Yeah, pretty crazy. But she is really powerful. I just for landfall decks, just making all your creatures into lands to trigger landfall, that's freaking crazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's insanely powerful. And then obviously her power and toughness is equal to the creatures you have out and the lands you have, so she'll be crazy huge as well.
Yeah, she'll be thick. You can chump block her for days, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
You only got so much.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Balaged Recovery. It's a flip card. The front side is 2 and a green for a sorcery. Return target card from your graveyard to your hand. So it's a regrowth for an additional mana. And the other side is Balaged Sanctuary. It's a land. It enters the battlefield tapped, and it taps for a green. So a 3-mana regrowth isn't too bad to play. It's not too bad to have when you can play it as a tap land in the early game. But I think limited is where this is really going to see the most play, because a lot of times it's about card advantage. And I know when I've played limited, I'll run out of gas a lot of the time, and a card like this just lets you pull something out of the graveyard and use it again. It's just any card, and it's just another one of these cycle of choice land spells that is
It's just so good.
it's really good.
You know what's one of the worst feelings with regrowth is opening it up, opening up your hand with a regrowth in it, and not really having anything useful to get back with it, because of course your graveyard's empty and it's going to be a while until you get something to actually interact with.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a little bit more of an expensive regrowth, but it has that flexibility of being able to be played turn one if you have no use for it at that point in the game. So I think it's incredibly powerful, and I'd even play this in Commander.
Well, yeah, it's funny you say that, because I run a regrowth in my Yisan deck, and I'm not going to take regrowth out, but I might take a forest out for this.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's the same converted mana cost as Eternal Witness. And unless you're totally abusing Eternal Witness, I'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
So what? I don't get a 2/1 body. I still have that flexibility of being able to either play land early or cast a regrowth effect late.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Next up, we have Gragplate Baloth. It's 5 and 2 green for a 6/6 beast. It has kicker for 2 and a green. This spell can't be countered. It has hexproof and haste, and if it was kicked, it enters the battlefield with 4 1/1 counters on it. So if you kicked it, it's a 10/10 with haste and hexproof. And it's only a rare.
Woo! This card definitely reminds me of Carney T or Carnage Tyrant.
There's no trample.
There is no trample, but it still can't be countered, which was kind of one of the big reasons why that card was played so much, because it could really hose control decks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I can definitely see this being in sideboards for sure. It doesn't have the trample, but hexproof and can't be countered. It's going to be hard to also remove it.
Yeah, so for the reasons I liked that, kicker pyroclasm spell that we talked about earlier, are the same reasons why I don't like Craigplate Baloth for Halar. Because to get
It's too expensive
to
for kicker.
to pay 10 mana to kick a big dummy is just not worth it.
Yeah, and by that point, when you're spending that much mana, you're already almost winning the game.
I would hope so.
Yeah. In that particular scenario.
But yeah, you can definitely have like grindy standard matchups and stuff, and
Oh yeah.
this can just be your good old finisher.
Yeah, this can be your top end for sure. Next up, we have Inscription of Abundance. It's 1 and a green for an instant. It has kicker for 2 and a green. Choose one. If this spell was kicked, choose any number instead. Put 2/1/1 counters on target creature. Target player gains X life, where X is the greatest power among creatures they control. And target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. At least it's an instant. I like that.
An instant speed fight spell is super good.
Yeah.
Yeah, at its baseline for sure.
Yeah, because like there are so many shenanigans you can do during combat with this spell in terms of like fighting other creatures that is really powerful. And then of course it does have the kicker as well, which can just really push it over if you have that 5 mana to spend. This can really do a lot of stuff during combat, and I think that's really, really cool. Like you can totally hose your opponent by killing something, putting counters on something else. Your attack, which may look super unfavorable, now you're just like in the lead big time.
Oh yeah, just hose them.
Just hose them.
Big time. Big time.
And this one is being slammed right in Halar.
Yes.
This is exactly what I want.
That's the kind of kicker we want to see.
Oh yeah.
I think that might be the subtitle for this deck. This one's being slammed in Halar. I don't know. I don't want to. Ainsley decides. I don't have any say in it. Sometimes she asks me. She'll give me like a list of a couple, and I'll be like, "Ooh, that one." But yeah,
I like that one.
exactly. That's the voice I do. Yeah.
Maybe that'll be the title. I like that one.
I'm not a smart man, but I like that one. Next up, we have Kanzandu Mammoth. It's another flip card. It's 1 and 2 green for a 3/3 elephant with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, Kanzandu Mammoth gets +2/+2 until end of turn. And the flip side is a land that taps for green and enters the battlefield tapped, and it has a lovely picture of a bunch of woolly mammoths hanging out in a valley.
Aw.
Yeah, they're sweet.
Yeah. I like this card.
Yeah, this is a really good option for is this the first time we're talking about a creature on a flip land?
I don't
I know there are creatures on flip lands. And I think there's a few more coming up.
This might be.
I don't know if this is the first one that we talked about in the set review.
But yeah, obviously getting a 3/3 for 3 is a good rate. The landfall just pushes it over, and I mean, if you need the land, you need the land. This is super solid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I might just slot this into my Canlander deck, my mono green Canlander deck.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
I think this would be a great addition.
Totally.
Yeah.
Mono green
Got it in
Stompy.
your opening hand, got your mana. If you don't, then it's a 3/3.
Yeah. Just play it, you dummy.
Come on.
Play it.
Come on. You're going to get hosed if you don't play it.
Don't get hosed.
Next up, we have Lotus Cobra. It's 1 and a green for a 2/1 snake. It has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. This is just a great reprint. It's great in landfall decks. It's great in ramp decks. It's great in snake tribal decks. It's just a fantastic card. And
Snake tribal.
whenever, as with Morophon as the commander, and after the set drops, this is going to be the best time to pick it up. So if you need some copies, now's the time, everybody.
Oh yeah, especially since it was downshifted to rare.
Oh, was it mythic before?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
That's. I think that's a bit much. Maybe that's that might be my own power creep talking, but I think that's a bit much.
For sure.
I also really like the alternate art for this one.
Yeah,
I think
it is really cool, and I like how the alternate art on the creatures. It has like in the text box, it has like that upside down triangle along the top. It's like very, it's just like Zendikar-y. So, however you feel about the collector's boosters, I think you have to agree that they do look really good.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's got a little lotus on its neck.
Oh, I never noticed that. That's cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now I can't look away.
Also, this is really cool because this is in standard along with.
Oh God! Don't say it.
Don't say it.
Gonna say Uro.
No, I mean obviously Uro, but Fabled Passage. So we actually do have a fetch land, and Lotus Cobra is obviously really good at fetch lands because you play the fetch land, get the extra mana, crack it, get another land, you get another extra mana with Lotus Cobra. Good stuff.
Yeah. There you go. Boom. Next up, we have Murasa Sproutling. It's 2 and a green for a 3/3 plant elemental. It has kicker for 1 and a green. When Murasa Sproutling enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, return target card with a kicker ability from your graveyard to your hand.
Oh yeah, guys.
Halar?
Guess what? Halar. This card's great. That's it.
Next up, we have Oran Reef Ooze. It's 2 and a green for a 2/2 ooze. When Oran Reef Ooze enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. Whenever Oran Reef Ooze attacks, put a 1/1 counter on each attacking creature with a 1/1 counter on it. Oh, they couldn't just let us put a 1/1 counter on each attacking creature? Come on.
No, you got to jump through that other hoop as well.
Yeah, it's kind of what's the Hydra that doubles the counters on creatures you control when it attacks?
Oh boy, I don't know. That's
Oh man, it's not coming to me.
I don't even have. I have no idea.
Oh, Colonial Hydra.
Oh,
so
okay.
Colonial Hydra, 3 green, trample, enters the battlefield with 4 +1/+1 counters on it. Whenever it attacks, double the number of +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. So, of course, that's a bomb, but it's very, like, the Oran Reef Ooze is very reminiscent of that ability, just in the sense that it's kind of like a little mini Hydra. Of course, you have to have that condition of having counters on the creatures that are attacking, but I think in a dedicated +1/+1 counters deck, that effect at 3 mana is really strong.
Yeah. Next up, we have Roiling Regrowth. It's 2 and a green for an instant. Sacrifice a land, search your library for up to 2 basic lands, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. This card is great for both landfall strategies and lands going into the graveyard strategies. Either way, it's not going to be a bad thing to have essentially 2 copies of Harrow in your commander deck either. But when this card was spoiled, Riley and I were talking, and this card is a little bit... It's both better and worse than Harrow, because Harrow, the sacrifice land, is part of the cost. So if it gets countered, you lose the land. But with Harrow, the lands come into the battlefield untapped. So, it's a
little bit of give and
yeah,
take.
Exactly. Yeah, they're not just going to print a better Harrow, because then what's going to happen to Harrow,
Yeah. And imagine having like Harrow in this standard with Lotus Cobra.
Oh,
like
my
basically
goodness.
a 1 mana ramp
boy.
spell that also generates you 2 mana off Lotus
That's
Cobra.
disgusting.
So basically like a -1 cost ramp spell.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
Be great.
Next up, we have Swarm Shambler. It's 1 green for a 0/0 fungus beast. It should be Simic, I feel like, with that creature type. It's Swarm. It enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it. Whenever a creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it becomes the target of a spell an opponent controls, create a 1/1 green insect creature token, and you can pay 1 and tap it to put a 1/1 counter on it.
That fungus is swole.
I don't know what is going on there, but it is it's unsightly. I'll say that.
It's pretty. Yeah, it's just something you can also like. It's a good 1-drop, and then later on in the game, this can be something that your opponent might have to like use a spell on. So it's really, really cool that way.
Yeah, it's nice that the clause looks at all of your creatures with +1/+1 counters on him.
Also that too.
That's kind of a nice perk. And, you know, if you have those mana inefficient turns where maybe you have a land untapped, you can just invest it into Swarm Shambler to make it a little bit bigger of a threat.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we have Tajuru Paragon. It's 1 and a green for an elf. It's a 3/2. It is also a cleric, rogue, warrior, and wizard. And this is part of a cycle of cards that have this clause that are a cleric, rogue, warrior, and wizard. I think there's 2 other ones in the set. It has kicker 3. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, reveal the top 6 cards of your library. You may put a card that shares a creature type with it from among them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. The art on this card is a little funny. I know she's an elf and they're, kind of smaller in stature. I don't know. They're not smaller in stature. They're just more like wispy than us. At least that's what Lord of the Rings would have us believe. But it's sort of like they're doing a forced perspective thing here, and the legs look a little strange.
Well, yeah, if you look at it like that, yeah, they definitely look like one's a little stumpy, but it definitely is a more forced perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Now, okay, interestingly, she does have a kicker ability, but I'm not interested in her for Halar.
Oh, thank goodness. Okay, let's get to the good stuff here.
Yeah, so unfortunately, my Halar deck, I looked at the list, and there was less than 10 hits from her kicked ability. So I figured, even though she does proc Halar when she's kicked, like she's likely going to whiff with her ability.
Mm-hmm.
So not worth it. But the most important thing is that, well, first of all, she can fill any member of a party, which is awesome. So tribal, she's an honorary include.
Mm-hmm.
And she's also a 2-mana 3/2. Which is like
that's great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome stats. So she's likely also going to find a home in my mono green Candlander deck.
Nice. You're not going to be getting hosed there. Also, going back to the art, the background is the both sides of the blue mythic land, the Seagate. I think the land part is Reborn, and the front one that lets you draw a bunch of cards is Seagate something, Restoration maybe? I don't know. That was a week ago. I can't be expected to remember cards. But anyways, let's move on to the next card. We have Taunting Arbor Mage. It's 2 and a green for a 2/3 elf wizard. It has kicker for 3. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, all creatures able to block target creature this turn do so. So this is kind of a callback to Taunting Elf from... Oh, what set was that?
Must have been like Onslaught or something like that.
Like I have a foil one, so it's definitely post Urza's legacy. But it was like all creatures. I think it was Onslaught actually. Good call, Riley. I can see it in my mind's eye, and it's all creatures able to block Taunting Elf do so. So you attack with Taunting Elf, and you have like a Nylia's bow, and you give it Death Touch, and it's your opponent frowns. It's a whole thing. Anyways,
I also love effects like this because you basically get all of your combat damage through to your opponent.
Exactly.
Hey,
Yeah.
it looks like it was originally printed in Urza's Destiny, but it was also reprinted in Onslaught.
I definitely have the Onslaught version, but interesting that I mentioned Urza's Destiny, and that was the first set with foils.
Yeah, I think I have the Urza's Destiny copy.
I think the art's different on both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
but
you will, with a card like this, you will get all the damage through, and that's extremely powerful.
Yeah, I think those lure effects are underrated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so too. People don't really see it that way, and then it's just like, oh, I play this card and win the game.
Yep. Yeah. So this is one that I'm kind of like trying to figure out if I'm comfortable slotting it into Halar. I think that lure ability, even for a turn, while proccing Halar's ability, is worth it. But it's just a matter of, is it worth it to take up a slot than what's already in there?
Right. Of course.
For sure.
That's always That's always the thing.
The thing.
That's the thing. Well, you don't want to get hosed,
Oh, God forbid you get hosed.
Next up, we have Tangled Florahedron.
Florahedron.
Yeah.
Boom, got it. It's 1 and a green for a 1/1, and it is a mana dork. It's an elemental, and it adds 1 mana to your mana pool. And the flip side is Tangled Veil, and it enters the battlefield tapped, and it taps for a green. It's a land, by the way. It's just like, either way, you're a winner with this card.
Oh, yeah. Wiener, chicken dinner.
Yeah, I thought this one was pretty interesting since it's like, oh, the land adds mana, or your creature can add mana. They kind of do the same thing.
Yeah, I saw a joke on Twitter that said, like, this is probably got to be the winner for the modal card that causes the most, like, decision points. Have, like, open your hand. Do I want to play this now or on turn 2? So, great card all around.
Man.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
That's funny. We got a comment on our, because I used the art for Tangled Veil as the thumbnail for last week's episode, and we got a comment on that post saying that this this is the best art in the set, and I assume the gentleman was referring to Tangled Veil, but I'm not sure if it was Tangled Florahedron, but who knows?
I mean, it's beautiful art.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, I know. I love a good Hedron. Hedrons perplex both minds, large and small, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Next up, we have Turntimber Symbiosis. It's 4 green for a sorcery. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield. If that card has converted mana cost 3 or less, it enters the battlefield with 3 additional 1/1 counters on it. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And the flip side is one of the Mythic Bolt lands. So it can enter the battlefield tapped, or you can pay 3 life, and it doesn't, and you can tap it to add a green to your mana pool.
Babu, Serpentine! Sorry.
This card's great.
Yeah, this is a great card. Obviously, we get the land if we really need it, but then late game, we're just going to use this card to find a threat, and if we hit something small, it'll still be somewhat beefy with the 3/1/1 counters.
That is a nice touch. I feel like there's so many cards in this set that are just like, hey, you know what, buddy? You didn't do so good on this one, but here's a little something extra to get you there. Like all the equipment's just attached on entry. It's just like, it just seems like a really feel good set to me.
Yeah, it's like a swaddling embrace.
Yeah. It's like you just got your cord cut. You just got it. Yeah, this is like a great set to like get into Magic on. Like I'm really envious of the players that started playing Magic on this set because I kind of got in to Magic like on the tail end of the Urza block, but then I was in on like Mercadian Mask, and not the best. I gotta tell you.
Yeah, but people have been talking about this card for Modern as well in prime time. Seems like a great card, just with the sense of like, play it out as a land early if it's in your opening hand. Otherwise, I know some strategies of prime time will play the bounce lands, so there might even be an opportunity late in the game to play a bounce land, pick this up, cast it, get a prime time, and go have a good time.
Go have a prime time, more like.
Hey.
Exactly.
Next up, we have Vastwood Surge. It's 3 and a green for sorcery. It has kicker 4. Search your library for up to 2 basic lands. Put them onto the battlefield tapped. Then shuffle your library. If this spell was kicked, put 2 1/1 counters on each creature you control, including Halar the Firefletcher. No, it doesn't say that last part, but you do get to put the counters on him if he's in play.
Yeah. It's just another in the long line of cards that are strictly better than Explosive Vegetation.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. They keep doing that, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
It's really interesting how recently they're just like, you know what, this is a decent ramp spell. Let's see what we can do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, great. Great card for Halar. I'm into it.
Next up, we have Vine Gecko. It's 1 and a green for a 2/2 elemental wizard. The first kick spell you cast each turn costs 1 less to cast. Whenever you cast a kick spell, put a 1/1 counter on Vine Gecko. And looks like he's about to, or she is about to snag a little bug there. It looks juicy.
Yeah,
Nom 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 nom. I was waiting for Riley to be like, Halar.
Yeah, this would be fantastic in Halar.
Yep. Moving on.
Need 1 less mana on all his kick spells. I love it. All right, so we're going to move on to the gold cards here. And the first card up we have is Akiri Fearless Voyager. It's, I can't tell. I think it's a lady. She's a red and a white for a 3/3 legendary core warrior. Whenever you attack a player with 1 or more equipped creatures, draw a card, and you can pay a white. You may unattach, an equipment from a creature you control. If you do, tap that creature, and it gains indestructible until end of turn. And that's a white mana colon. So you can just boom, boom, boom. If you need to unattach a bunch of your creatures to save them from a board wipe, you have that option.
Yeah. And sorry, notably, it doesn't target. So it works with things like Lightning Greaves for you commander players out there. So that's a nice little feature.
Yes. Or what's the other one? Whisper Silk Cloak also gives Shroud.
Yep.
I really like that they're trying to have they're designing a Boros commander with a built-in card advantage engine on it, because I think the sort of the first maybe not the first, but in recent memory it was Feather, which brought back cards that you had cast. I don't exactly remember the text on Feather, but I remember there being a lot of buzz around building around Feather at the time when War of the Spark was being spoiled. But I really like this commander. Like I don't know that I would build a deck around it. I'm sort of married to SRAM, so that's more of a Voltron thing. But this commander doesn't necessarily want you to do Voltron, and it does have that built-in clause that protects your other equipped creatures. It's more like equipment tribal, which I really like. So I would prefer it if it was with whenever an equipped creature, attacked or dealt combat damage, you got to draw a card, as opposed to just at each attack step. If you attacked with an equipped creature, you get to draw a card. But, maybe in the next 6 months we'll get something like that for Boros.
Yeah, I mean, we had one in Mardu, right, with the Mardu Brawl deck. I can't remember the knight's name.
Sir Gwyn, Hero of Ashvale.
So, yeah, whenever an equipped creature you control attacks, you draw a card and take 1 damage, basically. So there is that effect out there. Of course, it's not in Boros.
Yeah, it's Mardu, though. You can just play all the black draw spells, though, if you want to do that.
yeah, really. But Akiri is a really strong equipment commander.
Yeah, totally.
I'm a big fan of her. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can always split up your attacks, right? Because it's for each player that you attack.
Definitely.
So you could, in a 4-player pod, you could get up to 3 card draw.
Yeah, and with there's a lot of equipments that give evasive abilities, or just straight up unblockable, and then you can secure that card draw. But very just an extremely cool design on a card. Like, this is the first commander in quite a few sets where I've actually had a real passion for building around it. And that doesn't happen for me too often. Obviously, we build decks for the show, and like the Ikoria Commander decks. I've had to think about building around that deck and actually doing it in paper. But I think it's different when you're like, okay, I want to put this together in paper and I want to see how it plays out. Next up, we have Grakma, Skyclave Ravager. It's 1, a black and a green for a legendary Hydra Horror 0/0. It enters the battlefield with 3 1/1 counters on it. Whenever another creature you control dies, if it had a 1/1 counter on it, put a 1/1 counter on Grakma. And when Grakma dies, create an X When Grakmaw dies, create an XX black and green Hydra creature token where X is the number of 1/1 counters on Grakmaw.
Yeah, get gracked.
Grakmaw.
Yeah, we should make t-shirts.
Hey boys, my name is Grakmaw.
You gonna be getting gracked.
Yeah, get gracked.
Yeah, even in a way that like this creature can get bigger and then it also replaces itself when it dies. That's just primo value.
Totally, yeah, like 3 mana 3/3 that gives you a what is it when it dies? Yeah,
It basically replaces
exactly.
It's the exact same of whatever it was.
Yeah. It's like 3 mana for 6 power. It's pretty good. Just at base value. Yeah.
Yeah, and then attack with that Orin Reef Ooze. Ooh.
Oh yeah. Talk about synergy. Next up, we have Kaza Royal Chaser. It's a blue and a red for a legendary human wizard. It's a 1/2. It has flying and haste, and you can tap it. The next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn costs X less to cast, where X is the number of wizards you control as this ability resolves.
I'm glad they added in that little clause just for clarity.
So like if you so it's like, well, this is on the stack, you can play like wizards that have flash, or if you have like Leyline of Anticipation, you can play wizards.
Or if somebody moves to like remove one of your wizards,
right,
then to count your wizards as it resolves.
Well, always count your wizards.
Yeah. This is a fun commander, or fun in the 99 if you're running like an Spellslinger command like wizard Spellslinger deck.
Yeah, this is just a really cool Izzet card.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it.
Mm-hmm. It's hard when we're talking about Izzet cards to not like when Eric said this is a really fun Izzet card, to not be like, is it?
Is it?
And I restrained myself from doing that, but I
probably so hard.
I couldn't. It was really hard. I couldn't restrain myself from having this. So we're just going to move on to the next card. It's Linvala, Shield of Seagate. She is 1, a blue and a white for a legendary Angel Wizard, 3/3 with flying. At the beginning of combat of your turn, if you have a full party, choose target non-land permanent an opponent controls. Until your next turn, it can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated, so it's detained. And then you can sacrifice Linvala, choose hexproof or indestructible. Creatures you control gain that ability until end of turn. And that is what I really love about this card. It's just like sacrifice. I can just protect whatever I want. I love it. Yeah, 3 mana 3/3 with flying. What do you want?
Yeah, good
totally.
card.
This is basically like a selfless spirit with like extra choices on it. So
or like a Dauntless Escort with flying.
Yeah. Wait, what is Dauntless?
It's Selesnya. It's a Selesnya Rhino.
Yeah, but it doesn't do the hexproof thing. The hexproof thing is so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but neither does Selfless Spirit.
Yeah, but Selfless Spirit's only 2 mana. This guy's 3 mana. Yeah. Get out of here.
Well,
Doesn't even
Linvala is
have flying either.
Yeah, that's what I said. Do you really expect this Rhino Soldier to fly?
I mean, you can throw that.
I think Linvala.
I feel like if bees can fly, we can somehow get Rhino folk to fly.
All I'm saying is Linvala seems a little bit more similar to Dauntless Escort in its converted mana cost, its multicoloredness, and its 3/3 stats, and its sacrifice abilities to give creatures you control indestructible until end of turn, compared to Selfless Savior.
Selfless Spirit. And and that might be a future episode when we do like who wore it best. Exactly. Yes, thank you. But in the meantime, we're going to move on to the next card. It's Murasa Rootgrazer. It's a green and a white for a 2/3 beast with vigilance, and it has tap. You may put a basic land card from your hand onto the battlefield, and tap, return target basic land you control to its owner's hand. Wow.
Landfall Heaven.
No kidding. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And you get to attack.
Yeah, it's tricky.
It's very tricky.
Imagine triggering those landfall abilities after you've attacked.
Oh, look at that.
I don't even want to.
Sounds
I don't even want to think about that.
Well, it's a 2/3, so 2/3 with Vigilance is still a good card.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. Next up, we have Nissa of Shadowed Bows. It's 2, a black and a green for a legendary planeswalker, Nissa. It enters the battlefield with 4 loyalty counters. She has a static landfall ability. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a loyalty counter on Nissa. Her +1 is untap target land you control. You may have it become a 3/3 elemental creature with haste and menace until end of turn. It's still land. And her -5 is you may put a creature card with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of lands you control onto the battlefield from your hand or graveyard with a 1/1 counter on it. So I think the fact that if you play this on turn 5 and you have a way to get an extra land onto the battlefield, turn 5 and you play a land, you can just alter right away is pretty incredible. But just that static landfall ability to get additional loyalty counters on her, especially in Commander, is kind of nuts.
Also, so here we're turn 4, slam a questing beast, get it in there. Somehow it dies. Turn 5, Nissa, land, get the questing beast out of the graveyard. It's a freaking 6/6 now, getting in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. No,
like
I think mid-range strategies are going to really love Nissa the most.
Yeah.
Just because, like, of course, she has that clause where it's limited to whatever you're reanimating, it's limited to however many lands you have. So you're not going to break it by any means. But for sure, extra land drops, even just being able to turn a land into a 3/3 elemental creature with haste and menace, like that's a threat in its own. So, yeah, seems like an all-around strong card, but not broken.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would like to see like these like the last few Nissas we've seen her turn lands into creatures. I would really like to see her be able to turn lands into creatures until like the end of your next turn or until your next turn, so that they just have a way to protect themselves. That would be my only qualm with these creatures. And I don't know that that's like, I don't think that's too overpowered to just change the text a little bit.
No, I think putting counters on it and it staying as a creature is a little bit OP. But we only dealt with that for the last however long. So,
Well, yeah, I guess I'm speaking as someone who's never played Standard. So, next up we have Omnath, Locus of Creation. It's a red, green, white, and blue for a legendary elemental 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card, and it has a landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life. If it's the first time this ability has resolved this turn, if it's the second time, you get to add a red, green, white, and blue to your mana pool. If it's the third time, Omnath deals 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker you don't control. Oh my goodness. The text box on this card is incredible, but I feel like a little kid saying this, but I just love that all his arms are different colors. I just love it. I just like, give me a hug, Omnath. Come on.
I don't want that thing hugging me.
Yeah, works well with fetch lands though. I mean, getting 4 mana off of cracking your fetch, like, seems good.
Seems pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like that 4 damage in a lot of Commander games, like that's gonna wipe most of your opponent's boards.
Well, it doesn't hit creatures though.
Oh right, it's opponents and planeswalkers. Yeah, I guess that would be a bit much.
That'd be.
But they're gonna have a bad time. You can assure that.
Yeah, and I mean, if I'm being honest, I don't want anybody to have a bad time. I just want them to to learn.
They're gonna have a good bad time.
Yeah,
What?
because I'll be palling around with them. I'll be like, hey, your board just got wiped,
Yeah.
but just, we can be friends. You know what I'm saying? Hey, forget about it.
Hey.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yes, but I imagine if game stores were open, we'd be seeing a lot of this in the coming months as Commander.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, forget about it. Next up,
about
we have the buy a box promo. We have Aura Skyclave Hierophant. It's 2, a white and a black for a legendary core cleric, 3/3 with lifelink. When it or another cleric you control dies, return target cleric card with lesser converted mana cost from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this, with the new commander die triggers, this definitely makes this card a lot more playable.
Yeah, looks fun.
Yeah.
Probably create some fun loops. I haven't really looked into it yet, but Cleric Tribal, it's coming back.
Get cleric.
Next up, we have Pylath World Sculptor. It's 4, a red and a green for a legendary elemental 5/5. When it enters the battlefield, create a 0/1 plant. Create a 0/1 green plant creature token for each basic land you control. And it has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put 4 1/1 counters on target plant you control. So this is a lot like Avenger
of Zendikar.
Yes, thank you. And Avenger does create the 0/1 green plant tokens, but it's for each land you control. And when a land enters the battlefield, you put a 1/1 counter on each plant you control. But these could certainly work very well together. I mean, if you had a Pylath commander deck, you're going to put Avenger Zendikar in there.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if you don't,
Yeah,
we're
they
going to
go
have a
hand in hand.
conversation about it.
Yeah,
What's wrong with you?
yeah, we'll give you a long lecture.
We might do an episode on it.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Spoils of Adventure. It's 4, a white and a blue for an instant. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party, and you gain 3 life and draw 3 cards. I feel like even at 6 mana, that's not the worst cost to pay for an effect like that. Survival itself is no small reward. Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, because at a baseline, it's Sphinx's rev for 3,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So, just add a couple party members and you've got a good deal.
Yeah. Yeah, and again with the party mechanic, like it, of course, it just gets better. But even at 5 mana, like this, like I'd be willing, because it's instant speed, I'd be willing to pay it at 6, and then it just gets better and better and better.
Yeah. This is a card that's going into tribal.
That's right. Yes, your tribal, and that is a future episode that we're gonna do for sure. I can't wait, honestly. It's next up we have Verizal, the Splight Current. It's X green blue for a legendary serpent 0/0. It enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it for each mana spent to cast it. So that considers commander tax, which is nice. And whenever you cast a kick spell, you may remove 2 1/1 counters from Verizal. If you do, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. Too bad this wasn't like Gruul. Hey, Riley?
Yeah, no, I was actually pondering today. I was thinking, okay, there's all these blue kicker spells that are coming in. Is there a world in which I would consider changing Halar to Simic? And I had to look at the list, and it's not that exciting.
No.
Even if you can double everything.
Yeah, I figured, as cool as Verisol is, I'm not as stoked about it as I am with Halar. I think Halar still has my heart.
Well, Halar just deals so much damage throughout the course of a game. Like, as an opponent, like, you don't even see it coming. It's like, oh, all of a sudden I'm at 8 life. I guess I'll die.
Yeah. Yeah, this card is also pretty cool because it is like just how you're saying the commander cast. It also cares about like the blue-green that you have to cast for.
Right.
So if X is 2, it is going to be a 4/4. So
Yeah. Next up, we have Yasharn. Next up, we have Yasharn, Implaceable Earth. It's 2, a green and a white for a legendary. For a legendary elemental boar, 4/4, when it enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic forest card and a basic plains card. Reveal those cards, put them onto the into your hand, then shuffle your library. Players can't pay life or sacrifice non-land permanents to cast spells or activate abilities. Don't we have like a curse in our Commander League that stops players from paying life or something like that to stop them from activating abilities? I feel like if we don't, we should. And I feel like we've seen this on a card previously, like a white card, like players can't pay life or sacrifice permanents to cast spells. I think it was like a white angel. But anyways, Yasharn.
Yeah. Hate pig.
Okay, so let's move on to the next card here. We have Zagras, Thief of Heartbeats. Ooh, I think he might be a vampire. He is. He's a vampire rogue. He's 4, a black and a red for a legendary vampire rogue, 4/4. It costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. It has flying, death touch, and haste. Other creatures you control have death touch. Love it. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a planeswalker, destroy that planeswalker. That's planeswalker death touch. That needs to be a keyword.
just say Planeswalker Death Touch.
Come on, we know what it means.
He would combo well with Goblin Sharpshooter.
Oh, yeah.
boy.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
I mean, unfortunately, Sharpshooter doesn't have one of those relevant creature types, but nonetheless, like, just start pinging down your opponent's board.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's time to make a black-red pinger deck.
Oh yeah,
Got to. Next up, we have Zareth San, the Trickster. It's 3, a blue and a black for a legendary Merfolk Rogue, 4/4 with Flash. You can pay 2, a blue and a black, to return an unblocked attacking rogue you control to its owner's hand, to put Zareth San, the Trickster, from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Whenever Zareth San deals combat damage to a player, you may put target permanent card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. I feel like this one is trying to get you to set up a mill strategy to preamble the activated ability or just a regular attack from Zareth San.
Mill Rogue.
oh yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Slot that right
all
into the
synergizes. Yeah,
Mill Rogue.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a Rogue Jitsu, so I
Yeah,
mean, it's
right?
a little bit more limited on what you can return to your hand, but yeah, it's basically ninjutsu for rogues.
For rogues.
Specific.
Okay, next up, we're moving on to the colorless cards here. So the first thing we have here is the choice lands, which is I coined them that. I don't know what else are they being called on the internet, you guys.
Well, I mean, in technical terms, they're the modal double-faced lands, but I've flip lands, choice lands.
Flip lands, choice lands.
Yeah. I guess I sort of started calling them the flip lands, but because they're not they don't flip when they're in play, anyways.
Yeah.
I really do like the choice lands because it's you make a choice.
Yeah, and that's
Obviously.
the first time we've really seen this effect where okay, it's in my hand, I get to choose how I play it. I don't want to, and who knows how things get coined. Someone else could have started calling them that at the same time as me, but that's global connection for you. But we have three enemy choice pairing. So we have an Is It one, which is Riverglade Pathway and Lava Glade Pathway, and then we have Bright Climb Pathway and Grime Climb Pathway. Grime.
Oh, it's so grimy.
So then for the allied ones, we have Clearwater Pathway and Murkwater Pathway. And next up, we have Branchloft Pathway and Boulder Loft pathway, and then we have a Needle Verge pathway and Pillar Verge pathway, and then Craggroft pathway and Timber Crown pathway. All right. Well, regardless of the enemy and allied
There's a
pairings
lot of
there,
pathways.
we did all the pathways. So, you know, it's always really refreshing to see a land cycle that I'm not immediately certain where to put them. And that's how I felt about this land cycle. And you know, I think that you're not going to be wrong to swap out a couple of basic lands in your 2-color commander decks. You know, you can't go out and fetch these, but I think that the fixing and the flexibility in your hand is worth it, as you know, in addition to having the various dual lands in your deck. So I really like these lands in those scenarios. I don't know how I feel about them in 3 and 4 color commander decks, but definitely in like 2-color commander decks, I'm going to be picking up the appropriate copies of these. It's just kind of ironic that I don't have any commander decks with these particular 2-color pairings, but what are you going to do? I guess build more commander decks.
Yeah, you got it.
Well, you have to. Yeah, you can't stop at 18. You have to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to think of them as almost like a fetch land that can only fetch those 2 colors. Right?
It's a color.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, obviously, you get one or the other. So the flexibility is when you initially play it, it's not long term. But the ability to be able to play either or and have it come into play untapped with no other restriction, I think is a big advantage.
Definitely. Yeah. And they don't enter the battlefield tapped, so there's not a lot of opportunity cost to putting these in your 2-color decks at the very least, you know, regardless of where these end up seeing play, and when we get the rest of the cycle. I'm very interested in seeing how they work in Commander at the very least.
I actually think they're going to be really good in 3-color as well, just because you just got to watch for the kind of like colors that you need. Being able to like choose one or the other color. The big thing is these don't come into play tapped, which is really, really powerful, obviously, because we can use our mana right away.
Yeah, it's huge. And
yeah, I would just watch out for these guys, because if they start out kind of, I didn't even look at the prices on them, but I think they are going to kind of like definitely slowly.
They're not very high. They're all under $10, and yeah, like Eric, that's a really good point, because like the thriving land cycle from Jumpstart, like those are a lot. I think those are a lot better in like 3. I think those are in their sweet spot in 3-color decks. And when it comes to 3-color decks, like I think I didn't think of that because I don't have that many 3-color decks, but you do get to know the mana distribution in your 3-color deck. So you know, like when you draw this card, this, you know, Crag Crown pathway, what side you need to play that on, like how often you're going to need what type of mana. So yeah, I think that is a really good point. So yeah.
Yeah, because again, like, you know, oh, my deck's more green heavy and I have a mountain in hand, so this is coming out as the Timber Crown pathway for sure, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, no doubt.
Easy stuff like that. Also, I found it kind of interesting that usually when they print these kind of lands, we get 5 and 5, but they printed 6.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really happen, so interesting.
Yeah, and they said the other 4 are coming in a later set, and people are assuming it's going to be in call time.
Oh, I didn't even see that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Crawling Barrens. It's a land. It taps for colorless, and you can pay 4 to put 2 1/1 counters on Crawling Barrens. Then you may have it become a 0/0 elemental creature until end of turn. It's still a land.
Like, we obviously had creature lands before, I found this one pretty interesting because you can actually, if you just feel like dumping mana into it, it doesn't have to become a creature if you don't want it to, which I don't think has ever really happened before. So this one's kind of interesting.
That's true. You can also just pump
I didn't think of that.
more and more mana into it to make it a bigger and bigger threat. Right?
Exactly.
Which I think is a really powerful ability. I mean, 4 mana to activate its ability is steep, but in situations where every turn you're investing that 4 mana because you have nothing better to do, it's just going to become a bigger and bigger threat.
Yeah, it's now just like this bigger creature that's like also a freaking land. So
yeah, and it comes into play untapped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, when you got all that Tron mana, you need some place to put it, and it's like, if am I gonna swap out Walking Ballistas for this? I think you know the answer.
No.
That was the answer. Yes, you got it. I was kidding. Next up, we have Forsaken Monument. It's 5 mana for a legendary artifact. Colorless creatures you control get +2/+2. Whenever you tap a permanent for colorless mana, add an additional colorless mana. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, you gain 2 life. So I don't think they needed to put that last clause on there to gain the 2 life, but I'm not upset about it. It's great. I think this card is going to be great in artifact heavy decks. Obviously, Eldrazi decks are going to want this card. Any deck that's ramping with a lot of colorless mana is going to want this card. It's just a solid support card.
Hey guys, guess what?
What's up?
It combos with Basalt Monolith.
Yes. Yep.
But what doesn't these days?
Oh, I know.
Yeah, what doesn't?
Yeah. Next up, we have Lithoform Engine. So, a lot like the last card, which I would say is kind of a commander staple. I think this is going to be more of a commander staple. It's 4 mana for
insane.
a legendary artifact. You can pay 2 to tap it, copy target activated or triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. You can pay 3, tap it, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy, or you can pay 4, tap it, copy target permanent spell you control. So the Riku of True Reflections decks just got an upgrade. Let's not tell Trevor about this, but this card, like the first ability is obviously Strionic Resonator, and Strionic Resonator is only 2 mana. And then you get that ability. But I think that this card's really interesting. I think the decks that want to utilize all of the, like, each ability on this card are few and far between. And, of course, all of our decks have activated and triggered abilities. They have instant and sorcery spells, and they have permanent spells. But I just mean the decks that really want to abuse all of these abilities to the best of their abilities are going to be less common. And, that being said, if you have a deck that is very permanent heavy, or very instant and sorcery spell heavy, or very activated ability or triggered ability heavy, you're not wrong to run this card. This card is just fantastic in any of those builds.
Yeah, it's just a Swiss Army knife. It
Absolutely.
does whatever you want
Absolutely.
it to do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
It's really interesting because this set, I believe, is the first set where we've seen the ability to copy permanent spells on the stack, which brings up it brings up a really interesting rules interaction, because initially when this card was spoiled, people were talking about token doublers, like doubling season. But interestingly enough, since the abilities being copied on the stack, or I guess the permanents being copied on the stack, the new permanent that's created is coming in as a token. It's not actually being created on the battlefield, which is, I don't know exactly why it does what it does, but Wizards insisted that because it's being created as a copy on the stack, it's not being created as a traditional token. So it doesn't actually get doubled up by doubling season, which is really weird.
That is very interesting. Yeah.
The other thing to obviously, it's kind of funny because they were like, hey, remember Stronic Resonator? How do we just like amp that up? This is what we got.
Yeah.
But the good thing to also mention is that Stronic Resonator only targets triggered abilities. And now this one's letting you hit triggered or activated abilities. Right. So that's a really big upgrade as well, just for that ability alone.
Yeah, and like previously, Stronic Resonator was a very niche card in the decks that wanted to abuse triggered abilities. That's a very, very apt point. But yeah, just like I feel like we're going to be seeing this card all over the place.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
Next up, we have Myriad Construct. It's 4 mana for an artifact construct. It's a 4/4 and it has kicker 3. If it was kicked, it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each non-basic land your opponents control. That's all your opponents. When it becomes the target of a spell, sacrifice it and create a number of 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature tokens equal to its power.
So no matter what, this thing is gonna poop out 4 1/1s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, assuming it becomes the target of a spell.
Yeah, I guess not an ability. That's fair.
Yeah, or like a board sweeper would just sweep it away.
A board sweeper just sweep it away.
Yeah. But really interesting interaction with its sacrifice clause is because the clause is not an if conditional clause. Like it's not saying if it was sacrificed this way, create this many tokens. It's just sacrifice. It's just a result of the triggered ability. So if you use a spell like Shattering Spree, for example, with replicates to create additional copies of that spell to target the Myriad construct multiple times, then you're going to get multiple triggers, and each trigger is going to, the first one's going to resolve and it's going to die, right? Because it destroys target artifact.
Yeah.
All the other abilities, like all the other triggers will go on the stack, but of course everything else will fizzle. But all the triggers will still resolve and create additional colorless construct artifact creature tokens equal to its last known information. So however big the Myriad construct was when it died. So if you replicate a Shattering Spree 4 times, so you get 5 spells targeting the Myriad construct, and it's a 7/7, then you get 5 times 7 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature tokens.
Damn.
Yeah. So really spicy.
Next up, we have Skyclave Relic. It's 3 mana for an artifact. It has kicker 3 and indestructible. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, create 2 tapped tokens that are copies of it. And you can add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So for 6 mana, you could have 3 mana rocks that add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool that are indestructible. Yeah, you have 3 Darksteel Ingots.
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet.
It's a strictly better Darksteel Ingot.
Yeah. So if you haven't already taken those out of your commander decks, now's the time.
Yeah, it looks fun. I might actually run this in Halar as well. It just seems like, a fitting mana rock. Any mana rock that I can get kicker value off of, it's
is a good one.
Likely to be able to be run.
I'll just unsubstantiate it, I think.
Well, get away from me.
Next up, we have Spare Supplies. It's 2 mana for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield tapped, but when it does, you draw a card, and you can pay 2 to tap to sacrifice it. Draw a card. So 2 mana, draw 2 cards. Not bad. No, it's 4 mana, draw 2 cards. Not great.
Well, it's split up over 2 turns, right? Because it comes in tapped.
Yes. I was thinking of playing it on turn 5 with a Voltaic Key.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. No, it is a
but
common.
This is it's a really cool egg.
Yeah.
I have to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. for eggs specifically, and also in Pauper, there's a lot of people talking about it for Boros Monarch. Just like Boros Monarch tends to play a lot of eggs that enter the battlefield and draw a card, and this is definitely one of the better ones that we've seen at common. Just because it enters the battlefield, draws a card, and in a pinch, you can always sacrifice it to draw another card.
Yeah, which the other ones don't do. Like, you get 2 mana to do something, and then you just have this artifact sitting there. If you're able to sacrifice it somehow or something, you can get more value out of it. But this just lets you draw a card off of it, so...
Yep. If you don't need to bounce it back to your hand with, like, a Core Skyfisher or, like, Glint Sleeve Hawk, then you can just sacrifice it and draw a card in the late game.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, that was our last card, so we're going to bring this episode to a close. It's a little longer, but this was, I think, just letting our freak flags fly and just talking about every card we wanted to from the set was a lot more fun this time around.
This set also looks like a lot of fun. Like, I'm actually really excited
Yeah.
for this set compared to, I think, everything we've had this year.
Wow, yeah, well,
Yeah.
great. Yeah, this does seem like a fantastic set. Do let us know if we missed any cards that you are looking forward to playing with. You can do that, by emailing us or commenting on wherever you're listening to this. Of course, always, thank you for listening, and thank you to our editor Ainsley for the behind the scenes work that she does. Like Eric said, you can find us on YouTube, on Instagram, Turn 1 Soul Ring, the podcast. We're also on Patreon at Turn 1 Soul Ring, or patreon.com/Turn 1 Soul Ring. So check out our reward tiers. You can find me on Instagram at Command Beacon. I post, I kind of just post my decks. Riley, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Riles Dayton, or you can find me on Instagram at Riley_Dayton.
Fantastic. We'll be back next week to talk more Zendikar. We're probably going to be talking about those commander decks. Oh boy, those commander decks, eh?
Yeah, I've got some plans in store for those commander decks.
All right. That's all we have for you.
Thanks, everybody. You're all wonderful.
Thank you.
Babu Serpentine!
Bye now.
Turn 1 Soul Ring.
Did you leave me too, Eric? Oh, I'm all alone. It's so cold and dark in here. Hello? Is there anybody out there? Can anybody hear me? Is there anybody home?